Hello, everyone. My name's Hank Setala, and we
And
have,
I'm Sean Phillips.
and we're here with Power of Possibilities, which is something we do every month. And there's no rules. You can ask any question, and we just kind of follow the energy wherever it leads us to talk about from a whole host of different modalities and all that good stuff. And I just got to do one quick Facebook thing to make sure it's public on my stream here.
hmm Yep. So good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? And what is this? Week 5 or 6 or 7 of stay-at-home orders in Ohio and wherever you may be joining us from. How are things going with the strange world that we've been having
Living
the
in.
joy of living in?
Yeah, and I think that the stay-at-home order is through the end of the month, but businesses are open. So it's kind of like I'm not sure how that isn't that kind of counterintuitive, but I don't know. But anyway, I see people are joining us. Welcome. The whole idea of Power Possibilities
Howdy.
is that you can ask whatever questions, you can make a comment about a topic, and we just kind of follow the energy and we flow with it. We already have Mike saying hello, hello, Mike. Thank you for joining
Hey,
us.
Mike.
But if you have anything on your mind, especially with the craziness that's going on in the world, you can pose your questions, give us something going on in your world, and we will speak to that using tools from Access Consciousness, tools from shamanism, tools from Reiki, really tools from anywhere. There is nothing off limits. So this is our time together. So please, I know you're there, Mike. Is there anything in particular? This is a loaded question asking Magic Mike, but is there anything going on in your world that you want us to speak to?
Yeah. Last time we got a comment about squirrels, so
Yeah, Mike. Okay. But anyway, we always kind of fall back onto one common thread no matter which power possibility that we do, and that is to stay in and be the question throughout your experience, whatever you are working on in your life. There's great potency and power in asking questions. The
hmm
question is, which question do you ask?
yeah, it's one of those things. It's like when you're not sure which question to ask, you ask a question about which question, and it works pretty good.
And are you saying Brian, Michael? Oh, Brian cooking. I see, Mike. You got to give me a full sentence. So this is what we got. We got him saying Brian. Brian. That is Brian, right? Or is that
Well,
Brain?
no, I said squirrel, and I think he was
Oh,
jumping to
yeah,
squirrel. No,
that's
last
right.
time, Mike, there was something about you said something about squirrels. You were at a park, and then there was a lawnmower. We were having trouble following your adventure. It sounded very interesting.
Yeah, and I think Mike is cooking now. He's saying he's cooking. So yeah, well, you can just listen when you're done cooking and eating. Then you can type out a full sentence, and we're happy to jump down whatever squirrel hole, rabbit hole you want to go down.
Yeah.
But to Sean's point, though, if you're not sure, because when you ask a question, other than why is one of the questions we avoid using because it's the victim question. It just kind of loops you back into the same
Well,
cycle.
it's the why question and questions that have like a yes or no.
Yeah,
Those
because yes
tend
or no
to
is big time limitation.
yeah, it's you're not really putting it out there for a random possibility to occur. You're looking for a definitive finite either yes or no, which sometimes that's helpful, sometimes it's not. So,
Right. And when you're asking questions, if you're really looking to create possibility in your life, it's best, well, not best, but something that typically creates more possibility are asking things that are open ended that allow like a greater energy to come up versus, am I going to get a new job next week? Yes or no. It versus like, what are the infinite possibilities if I were to seek something different in my life in terms of career? Like a question like that, it really opens up a lot of space for energy to come in, and then you follow your awareness. We call it following the energy, and that's how Access all started. Was Gary Douglas just asked, what would I like my life to look like? And just from that, it put him on this whole adventure where this huge modality that's sweeping over the world now came from, just by asking a simple question like that. So what question could I ask that would create the greatest possibility in my life? Ooh.
hmm
And if we run out of questions, I got fortune cookies we can open.
yeah, because when you're really in doubt, you should go get a box of fortune cookies, and then those will tell you how to be inspired and what's going to be happening. So,
You know, my kids, it was even their idea to do the fortune cookie bit. They're like, Daddy, you know what you should do? You should get like a whole bunch of fortune cookies, and then you could just open them and like read the fortune, then talk about that. So I got this huge thing of fortune cookies just for that, and I go to get them just now, and they ate them all except two. I think
Well,
I got
they were kind enough to leave. I told you, one for each of us. They were very, very generous.
yeah, and we do have a question. So the journey within, right, which is it sounds like they might have a channel too. So
The
everybody goes,
hashtag journey within
yeah.
hashtag.
So what do you guys think? What do you think our think out our identity as spirits? What is our spiritual essence like?
All
That's
right.
just like asking what's the mystery of the universe here.
Yeah, we're starting with the easy ones. Just the put it on the tee and just swing.
So what do you guys think? What do you
Whew.
think our identity as spirits? I well, when you start talking about the word spirit, the word soul, and those types of things, there's a lot of intermingled points of view about what is a soul, what is a spirit, and there's a lot of different schools of
Mhm.
thought. So like just having a common place of language to even have that dialogue. But one of the places that what I think is source is all there is all at once, and we're all individualizations of like streams of consciousness, and that stream of consciousness is what we would look at as the linear existence of a soul or soul paths and past lives, future lives, and that type of thing. But it's also fluid. It's all happening at the same time, so it's not necessarily past lives, future lives. That's like I said, that's a kind of a really deep question to get into at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question though. I have this energetic response that resonates, and then
And I think they just did it again with corrected typos. What is our spiritual essence like? That is what I meant.
yeah,
Yeah.
I guess I'm just tapping into the energy of what that means for me, and I get the sense of the energy of it, and then putting it into words is like it's like trying to describe how something is wet.
It's
It's
like
like,
putting the
how do you
genie in the bottle.
describe wet?
Unbelievable cosmic power. Space.
Yeah. Um,
Well, Journey Within, do you have a particular stance on that? I know you probably, especially with the name, I would think that you have something on that. We can even send you a link if you want to come on. It might be a lot to type. I can send you a link so you can join us on the stream if you want to have a
ooh,
conversation around this.
come
Can
join
definitely
us.
do that. Yeah, absolutely. Let me get if you'd like to do that, just mention comment and I will post a link for you to join us in studio. Just do need a camera and a microphone and stuff like that. But definitely can do it. In fact, I'll just post it anyway. So, boom. Just posted the link for if you feel open to it, you can join us on stream and have a little bit of a more interactive conversation than trying to type things out and all that kind of thing. Because really, we are infinite beings having a finite experience here in the physical plane. And the only thing that limits what that experience can be is our points of view. And our points of view are something that we've gotten stuck with from our parents and society and all kinds of things as kids and everything. And as we start to unravel those points of view and those things that stuck us, it opens up more and more possibility for us to really step into the space of who we are as infinite beings. And that spirit
Hmm.
is just like that spirit, that unbridled spirit, that raw, undomesticated power of the universe is just underneath the surface, just waiting to be able to bubble out, getting as we pull all these layers of crap off that are preventing us from really stepping into um, that spectacular infinite being that we truly be, is where I go with that.
Hmm. Yeah. What jumped for me, as you were talking, and I was expanding a bit on the question. What really came up for me as a spirit, the answer I have in this 10 seconds, um, or at this moment is I really get a sense of living. Like the spirit is living, um, just like the, and by living, I guess I'm kind of also talking about just a being, like a beingness in the world. That's kind of what came up for me is that the spiritual essence of each of us is living. Um, sounds really simple. Sounds like one of those fortune cookie things. Like,
Yeah.
the the essence of life is living or something.
Well, I think the
So,
whole point of it all is to do whatever you to experience what you're choosing to be through whatever the universe brings to you to express that beingness you're doing.
and I think for me, it's the idea of living and that we're all experiencing living in, I guess, what we'd call a soul in a body. And it kind of ties into the idea, though, that everything's interconnected in oneness, and that we're not really separate from anyone or anything. Um, at the same time, here I go. Been working with time a lot, so that's one. It's like at the same, kind of in the same breath, you also have all this idea that, we have Hank and Sean and Journey Within and you joining us, online, right? We have all these senses of who we are as individuals, or we have like a personal identity that we also have to acknowledge to a degree. So it becomes a very intriguing topic of discussion because while we have this oneness, it's also that how can we have this? We also have this concept of self-identity. So it's like, how does that play into this idea of spiritual essence and living? It's very interesting.
Yeah. And they say the greatest truths are paradoxes because you have, yes, we're all one, but we're also all separate. Both things are true, and both happening simultaneously. It looks like Emmanuel, I'm assuming you're the one that was commenting. Did I say your name correctly? Probably not. Oh,
Uh,
welcome.
yes, you did. You did.
Great. Well, welcome.
Emmanuel.
Hey, Emmanuel.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
from what corner in the world are you joining us from?
Right now, I'm in Ohio.
Oh, Ohio. Oh, I thought you might
Sweet.
be. That is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Ohio in Palmer.
Oh, very cool. Oh,
All
so
the
we're
way in Parma. No way. We're in North Olmsted. I'm in North Olmsted.
and I'm in Westlake. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's great. But originally, I'm from Kenya.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so. Mhm.
Very cool.
Cool.
And I assume that you were the one commenting in the feed, correct?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I was the one commenting.
Cool. So do you have a particular idea about the question that you asked? What do you think about our identity? What is our spiritual essence like?
Okay, yeah, so like my perspective has really changed over time about how we exist in this planet and who we are, both as individuals and as a collective in the society that we live in the universe. So I feel like um, part of who we are as a collective in the universe is like we're forgetting who we are. It's a part of us, our spiritual essence, that thing within us that was never created by the human hand. That part of who we are, that spiritual essence that never dies, that part of who we are, I feel like is getting lost. And in times like these, with everything that is going on, I think it's time for us to remember that part of us that is infinite,
Hmm.
that is unbounded.
Hmm.
That part of us that is beyond the physical. You know,
Hmm.
so that is what my journey is all about. My journey is trying to find out what does that feel like? What does it feel like to be connected with that spirit source that makes life happen here on earth?
Hmm.
That's my spiritual quest.
Yeah, in shamanism, we call, well, at least the type that I practice, we call everything here the Kausai Pacha, the field of living energy. And
Hmm.
this animated essence is part of everything. And it's what unifies everything because everything is that, just manifesting in different ways. And
Yeah.
one of the tools from Neil Donald Walsh that you can use to start kind of being in the mindset that you are everything and feeling that
Hmm.
interconnectedness is called the I am meditation. So you just
Yeah.
go through everything you see and you say, I am
Hmm.
that, I am that, I am. And it's like a way to start
Hmm.
recognizing that I am all these things. And,
Hmm.
and that's just one thing. There's a lot of different ways to possibly connect like that. Just a
Hmm.
willingness to be open, I think, is the biggest starting point.
For sure.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, and going on to nature, I cannot stress. I mean, I just spent the whole day. I was so spaced out. I almost forgot that I was supposed to be here doing this because I'm
Hmm.
walking in the woods and I'm like, oh man, I think I'm supposed to be on a call tonight or something. And I
Right.
almost missed it.
Yeah, this
You
one.
know, what you've said about our interconnectedness with nature is something that in the recent days I've really been experiencing,
Mhm.
because it wasn't part of my consciousness to think that the tree that I'm seeing out here, in some ways, we're connected. The squirrel that I see in the park, in some way, there's a way that we communicate, you know,
Mhm.
there's a connection there to begin feeling as part of the larger universe. It is something that I'm opening my mind to that I
Hmm.
wasn't even, aware about.
Yeah. What's it like to just receive that energy of that connectedness and what's
Hmm.
wow.
Right. Well,
Like
yeah, and not falling into the trap that once you're aware of that, like
Hmm.
sometimes we try to rationalize it or put words to it, and there's some things that are so far beyond words that when you try to distill it down to a sentence of explanation, you just
Hmm.
lost it. So you can
Hmm.
only know it. You can only know it, and you can try to tell someone about it, but you can only know that
Hmm.
you know that you know.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And trees is a great example. We have another concept in Peruvian shamanism called Aini, which means
Hmm.
divine reciprocity. And one of the examples we use is our Aini with the trees around us because we give off carbon dioxide that the trees need and they give off
Hmm.
oxygen that we need. And that's
Hmm.
just one example of how there's just this flow of energy between all things.
Hmm.
yeah.
Wow.
And what's amazing with a lot of nature and something I've started to tap more into is truly how much nature's just receives and gifts all at once without any like judgment or concern about it. Nature just
Hmm.
that's why it's so nice to just go out and be present with it, is because
Hmm.
it's just there gifting and then also receiving whatever contribution you have to it. And it's just such a large, like the planet's so large, right? And it's got so much
Hmm.
energy to it. It's like you tap into it and it's just like it's so much grander than what we typically view as ourselves. And it's just like, oh wow, like, and it's right
Hmm.
here. It's like I can just be with the planet, and it's
Right.
amazing.
Yeah, one concept uh, that I've been thinking about also is the concept of change and transformation.
Mm.
Um,
Oh, such a fun topic.
yeah,
Now Sean's excited.
Oh, I'm excited now.
it's very amazing, like how you think about, I want to do this. For example, like when a person is addicted to something, most of the time it's not like they want to do that, but somehow it's almost like somebody is imprisoned in their own self, such that you cannot do what you actually want to do. So my
Mm.
thinking is, what is it in there that you're willing to do something, but somehow you can't?
Mm.
Like,
That's interesting.
you, is there like, what are those voices? Who are we really in our essence? What prevents us from doing what we actually want to do?
Hmm.
Well,
Well,
there's a few ways to probably look at
Mhm.
that. So, Hank, you wanna? I'll go with what you
well,
start with.
well, I was going to go with what you were going to start with because I was like, oh, I can go like a couple different places with that. But speaking first, you mentioned the word addiction. I'm 12 years sober from alcohol and all that.
Mhm.
And for
Mhm.
me, it was because I was so aware of interconnectedness
Mhm.
without any structure to know that everything that I was experiencing wasn't mine and it was like other
Yeah.
people's. So I
Mhm.
try to medicate that away. And so I was like in desperate, like wanting to, I don't want to be aware of all this stuff. But instead
Mhm.
of, I went that route instead of coming to like meetings like this, like the Power
Mhm.
Possibilities, to learn
Yeah.
tools where I can understand that, hey, not everything I'm experiencing is mine, and I don't need to experience it as pain or as overwhelmment and all that type of thing. So, just speaking one part about addiction, where were you going to go with it, Sean?
Well, that was actually one of the places I was going to reference was there can be a lot of layers to things like um we're saying addiction. I just totally did a mind blank. We're saying addiction, right?
Well, that was one thing, and then he also mentioned about what are these voices, and that could be a reference to entities and stuff like
Right,
that.
right. So with
Mhm.
addiction, the other thing I was going to add to what Hank said is, it's often where we could be distracting ourselves from a greater truth that we're not okay acknowledging, or maybe we've bought into the idea that it's not okay to acknowledge like a potency or gift we have or the awareness we have, and it's like, oh no, 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 that's too much. I need to
Yeah.
dial it back. So
Mhm.
sometimes that's where we create an addiction. We can create addiction from that to distract ourselves from the true spiritual amazingness that we be.
Yeah.
Um, and then the second part I had was gone.
All right. Well,
Over there somewhere.
well, and there was the other thing that as you were talking, I had the thought that sometimes, like when we're growing up, even like we're told, well, you don't want to stand out too much because you don't want all this attention to be on you. And so
Mhm.
when you do start, like if you are tapped into that, you're an infinite being, but at the
Mhm.
same time, like if you're standing out and then you're receiving all the people's judgments about standing out. Sometimes we just want to pretend that we're less than we
Mhm.
are, and sometimes the only way you can pretend to be less than you are is to
Mhm.
lose yourself in addiction or with destructive behaviors, with distracting behaviors until you're ready to step
Mhm.
into
Mm.
who you truly be. They call that tall poppy syndrome down in Australia. Like you don't want to be the tall poppy and stand out.
Well, it's a New
Oh, New
Zealand
Zealand. Oh
New
well,
Zealand
I
phrase.
was
Yeah.
I was close.
And
Um,
I saw another one. There's another one that it had to do with a nail sticking up, and like you never wanted to be the nail that sticks up, and like you have to get pounded down if you stand out
Yeah.
too much.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember which country had that, but it was very similar to the tall poppy one from
oh,
New
Mhm.
Zealand. So,
that's
these
fun.
ideas of not standing out, I mean, it's not just a thing in the US, or,
Mhm.
you said you're from Kenya, or, it's
Yeah.
all over the globe that this
It
that
is.
this occurs. It's not a your location phenomenon, which is pretty amazing when you start to get a concept of like the collective consciousness of the
Mhm.
planet in I'm going to say our, the human race or species or whatever.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing what's floating out there is just, that's it's like, kind of like that everywhere. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what could we do to change that so that, we can really truly tap into the what's available for ourselves. And
Mhm.
that's where, well, there we go, change, right? It's like, what
Yeah.
what what can we do to change this, and are we willing to have that change? Because that means we're
Mhm.
going to have to be different,
Yeah.
right? So that's
Mhm.
part of the acknowledgement process.
Mhm.
I've definitely had experience with that in the last, year, 2 years of like, okay, it's like I'd like to change this, and then there's a lot of times where now I have realized that I wasn't willing to actually
Mhm.
choose to have the change. So that's another. I guess we're going a little bit into the change here
Yeah.
would be that you have to be willing to choose to have the change. It's not just, oh, I'd like to have this. It's, I'm going to choose this now. I'm going to have it
Mhm.
now.
Yeah, like
And
a
that's
demand to the universe.
and that
Mhm.
that's where you start to really see that things start to change because you're actualizing and doing the things that mean change. And it doesn't have to be big things, it doesn't have to
Mhm.
be that you like quit your job and you start a new career and you take out student loans, or I mean, it doesn't have to be crazy. It can be a small step, like you you choose to change your morning routine and get up 10 minutes earlier so you can read the newspaper, and that gives you a broader awareness of what's going on the planet. Just it could be something as small as that or similar to that, that starts the process. So,
Yeah.
not sure what, that's just what came up.
I mean, yeah. And what I forgot your name.
Oh, I'm
Oh,
Um,
Sean.
I should put those up.
Hank doesn't have our name tags up.
I know. I'm sorry.
Hank.
Boom. Now we have name tags. Now
There you
everybody
go.
has. What else
Yeah,
is possible?
Hank, you mentioned something about recognizing that part of the things that affect our lives, part of it is not really ours. It's things that we've inherited from the society around us.
Well, possibly that, but more that as an infinite
Hmm.
being, one of the functions of the body is like a sensory perception machine, and we call it being an empath. And you might be aware, literally, of someone else's pain, and sensing it is one thing. The awareness that they're having an experience is one thing, but once you label it, once you name it, you claim it, and then
Yeah.
you might have the experience in your body, and that's where the tool from Access is who does this belong to? Mike was offering that a little bit ago. You can start asking who does this belong to and start to gain the awareness that all the things that your body's experiencing aren't necessarily yours. And it might be your
Hmm.
neighbors or it could be someone from across, the other side of the planet. That's how
Hmm.
aware we can be.
Hmm.
Yeah. So who does this belong to is a great tool. And if it's not yours, then you send it back to the send it back with awareness to wherever it came from. Not with
Hmm.
us like a spiteful spin or anything. It's just like, here's what you're putting out in the world, be aware. And
Hmm.
and it's really giving a great a great tool for starting to manage that.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that is a tool from Access Consciousness that both Hank and I are
Hmm.
practitioners and facilitators of the bars class that they
Hmm.
offer. So
Yeah.
we pull a lot from there.
That's great.
Yeah, a lot of good tools come
Hmm.
from Access.
Right. And then the other thing that sometimes the body is feeling and things, it's something that you, the being, are aware of but are unwilling to acknowledge, and then the body
Hmm.
acknowledges it for you. And if you were to acknowledge it, then all of it could go away. So, like
Hmm.
for example, uh, there's somebody that's close to me that I was going for a walk and I was just feeling like a lot of tightness in my chest. And I asked, well, who does this belong to? And then I had the awareness of who. And then I knew that, oh, there's someone that had a medical condition and I would have rather not known that. So I was ignoring my awareness and then my body was picking up on it. And as soon as I
Hmm.
was willing to be in the awareness and acknowledging, yes, I know that this is happening. And now
Hmm.
instead of turning a blind eye to it, I'm like, well, what can I be as a contribution to that to maybe shift this for them? And
Hmm.
then my whole energy went a whole different way. Instead of a place of ignorance, I was in a place of awareness, and then I could make a choice that made a change. So
Hmm.
that's another great question. What am I aware of that I'm not
Hmm.
willing to acknowledge that the body's acknowledging for me?
Hmm.
Probably a little bit more of an
Mhm.
advanced question. Sean would have bopped me on the head if we were just me and him right now saying, don't give him all the tools at once.
Well, I was about to bop you on the head, but no, probably more to the effect, a lot of times, we'll talk about what seems like a lot of tools or might seem like a lot, and I know I encourage, pick one
Hmm.
or two if you can't remember them all. It's a progression. It's like a lot of things. The more it's like a muscle. The more we use the tools, the more we get used to using them, and the easier it is to add more tools. So,
Hmm.
sometimes Hank and I get caught with, we've used these tools. Hank, for how long have you been using Access and stuff? I mean,
Oh,
at least 5, 6,
I think
7,
I want to say 5 years, maybe 4 or 5 years, I think.
5 years. Yeah. And for
Hmm.
myself, it's been about 2-year journey so far on that
Hmm.
front. So it's like, depending on where you're at, I mean, these might be the easiest tools and you get them and you just take them away. I mean, go for it. I mean, I'd love it if that's the case. Like, go use them all. I
Yeah.
know for others listening, maybe like, wow, they just rattled off like 3, 4, 5 things. Oh my God, I have to remember them all, or otherwise I'm not going to
No,
move down a conscious path. And
no, that's
it's
the
like,
beauty of doing this online. You could just go back and rewatch the video. You don't got to remember it all. You could just
yeah.
rewatch it.
Yeah, just bring us on your mobile device everywhere you go. Put us on repeat.
Mhm.
Yeah, especially on the YouTube channel, that helps us out. So definitely do that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
A shameless plug for the HHH YouTube channel. Most of you guys, I think, are watching from Facebook, though. Yeah, some are my profile, two on YouTube are watching, but yeah, but most of them are Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, if you follow, well, actually, I didn't post a link. Shame on me. I will post a link to the YouTube channel here in a minute, but I won't do it quite yet. But go to the YouTube channel, subscribe. We always stream there. The Facebook pages is kind of random, like whatever we pick to stream to at the time. So. Uh,
Okay.
and Michael loves the conversation. He gave us a whole bunch of unicorns. Thank you, Michael.
We got like 10 unicorns for that. Woo!
And and imagine, did you have something specific you wanted to offer around this hashtag? How much social distance is social distance? Is this real life or just fantasy? Can it be both? Could it be both?
Well,
But yeah, but just acknowledging that you made the comment. If there's some place that you want us to go with that, you could give us a little bit more to speak about, or follow the link to join us and see what happens on the stream. Speaking of next month, since the center is going to be reopened, the plan is we're going to stream from the center, but we're still going to be able to bring people on and have people on as guests and stuff like that. So if you're watching from wherever you are in the world, you can continue to do so, but we're going to actually have it in person at the center, so you can come in person or attend it live. Yeah, in person or live, that's the same thing. In person or on the live stream, you can do either. So we're going to be very flexible for being mindful of social distancing and stuff like that for people who consider themselves at risk or whatever reason, or if you just live far away. Like Parma is not exactly around the corner. It's not
Mhm.
far either, but we'd love to have you in person if you decide to come up to the center.
I'll definitely love to. Where are you located?
It's in North Olmsted, close to the intersection of Lorraine and Stearns.
Okay.
Yep. So 480 Stearns exit is the best one to get off at if you were took 77
exit
up.
3.
Exit 3. That's true. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we do different events all throughout the month. This is one of them, and then Sean and I also do like a conversations with God discussion group and some other fun things. So
Mhm.
always good stuff. Cool. And if anybody is watching too, and you have questions or comments, feel free to make them, and we'll be happy to speak to them with Sean, myself, and our special guest, Emmanuel. Or you, if you want to come on. I posted a link where you can join the stream. So there's no rules.
Yeah. Mhm.
Cool. So where shall we go with our conversation here? Do we fully explore everything that you had said about the spiritual essences and things and addiction?
I think that's a really broad topic. It can go shallow, it can go deeper.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a great topic to discuss, especially during this time. I feel like the humanity as a whole, as a collective, the human race has been, it's like we're being beckoned to recognize something perhaps that maybe we are almost forgetting. That's what I feel like. It's like now the human race, what are you doing? What is going on? And we are being reminded of who we are, you know? So with what is going on in the world, I feel like it's not by accident.
Mm-hmm. Well, my teacher from
Mhm.
the shamanic studies, Zane, uh, he was hypothesizing that everything is a result of us being out of balance with the mother, meaning Pachamama being out of Aini with the world,
Mhm.
and the being out of balance and out of Aini is this is one of the ways for to get our attention to slow down to start to reconnect with nature. I can't even tell
Mhm.
you, even today, going out on my little nature trip, there was so many people out. So
Mhm.
many people just in nature, and I heard someone making the comment, "Yeah, this is amazing. It's like a daily thing to go out in the
Mhm.
woods, and people are reconnecting." Now, granted,
Mhm.
everybody's not in the same boat. Some people are, having trouble with money and food and things like that. But
Yeah.
regardless of where you are and what your situation is, basically the pause button just got hit, and it's just you, yourself, and your soul, and the opportunity to reflect and the opportunity to connect. And with some people it's very anxious because a lot of hoocha comes up, a lot of heaviness comes up when you're just sitting and you're not in your normal distraction, because you got to get to work and you got to go grocery shop and you got to go do this. When all that stuff stops and you're just is just being. A lot of that, those boulders that were blocking our connection to the mother and to nature and to the animated essence that's underneath it all, starts to come up so we can deal with it. And then by dealing with it, we have a deeper and more real connection with it all. And that's what I think is really happening. It's like this big pause button, and everybody's starting to really connect. And like me and Sean doing this online and a lot of the other things at the center, people who have been doing this work for a long time have all taken to the virtual, not all, but a lot of people are offering meditations and yoga classes and a whole bunch of content online and reaching out and being a contribution in the world to help facilitate even more change. So there's all these things that are happening that are basically taking the species and saying, wake up. And hopefully we get the wake up call and we continue to wake up and keep it as we go back to the new normal, whatever that's going to be, which kind of leads into the question that Imagine was asking. She was saying, really talking about the social distancing. How far is too far from one another? We can drink but not dance, work but can't leave the house, get a haircut but not go to the gym. Where does the madness end? That's a loaded question too.
What is truly appropriate social distance?
Well, in true awareness, you would just know who not to go around. Well, and that's something to be said. Like, ask yourself when you're going to the store, hey, should I go today? And because I was about to go to Fresh Time the other day, and I was about to turn in, and I got, don't go today, don't go. And I'm like, okay, I don't need to know why I'm not going today. I went to Aldi's instead. And so what if you could be so aware that you simply know, I'm not touching that, the virus is there, or and that kind of awareness, then social distancing could be variable depending on what your awareness is telling you at a time. And the whole thing with all that too is let me process that. Sean, go. I'm gonna just process some energy real quick.
Well, I see we have some new comments. So Emmanuel, I would ask to you, what do you know about what awareness do you have about what's going on in the current with COVID? What are you aware of, and what do you know? Like, one of the things we talk about is we're infinite beings. So it's like, what do you know? Like, what awareness do you have to share?
So I feel like since the whole thing started, like I said, I am very sure that this is not a random event that just happens and goes and the human race forgets about it. That is what I feel like. And the implication of this whole thing to the human race is profound. I feel like it puts all the human beings on the same boat. And then from here, the question that we have to ask ourselves is, who are we really? Who are we as a collective? Such that when we look at people who maybe don't look like us, when we look at people who are in different parts of the world, we can be able to recognize ourselves in them. We can be able to say that we are one family. When people in different parts of the world are dealing with different challenges, we can be able to recognize that their troubles and their challenges are troubles and challenges for the entire human race, for humanity in general. So I feel like if this thing comes and goes and we say that it was a war and we won, without really looking at the deeper implications, the message that it carries to the human race, I feel like we will lose. So that's why I'm really, privileged to be able to share with people like you, because that consciousness of who we are and how we're connected to each other and to the rest of the universe is such an important aspect for us to learn and appreciate at this time. And then going forward to expand that consciousness so that more and more people will recognize that, hey, we are one. We are all connected. We are from the same spirit source. That is what I feel the message is for this whole thing.
Or to say it in some of Dr. Dane's word, who's an access facilitator, he would say we're moving from the, possibly he would say, I'm paraphrasing, that we're moving from the kingdom of me to the kingdom of we, where we're really functioning as a species and making choices, hopefully, for the possibility of everyone
Mm-hmm.
instead of just the one. Go to everyone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What kind of world would we live in if everybody really operated from that place? You know, actually, it gives me a good segue to throw out my little acronym Spirit. I got an inspiration to sit down the other day, and they said, we're going to give you an acronym for COVID. And so I sat down, and then I'm trying to like figure one out. They're like, no, we'll just give it to you if you just sit there. I'm like, okay. So I sat, and then they gave me this. I'll put it up on the screen here. It is COVID is the Earth's way of making us stop for a moment to create opportunities via intuiting divinity. And then my
Wow.
question is, what world would we create if we were all in touch with the divine?
I can just feel the calmness of what will it feel like if we are all connected to the divine. That divine essence within every single human being. I feel it would be a beautiful world.
It would be. And we all are connected with the divine. What if we were all willing to receive that connection and operate from that connection, from being connected instead of trying to pretend that we're not?
Right?
That's what ego's job is, edging God out. It's edging that oneness out. So the ego's purpose is to let us be this individualized essence, right? To be a drop of the ocean, but without being the ocean. But at the same time, like we gotta recognize that we are the ocean to make choices for the totality of all that is, instead of just me.
And it's about finding that, recognizing that it's there, but we haven't fully like for me, that's why I'm doing what we call what I call the journey within, because it's like a journey, and through the progression you come to recognize part of who you are that you never recognized before. You come to recognize that spiritual essence that connects everything to everything else. And that part of expanding the consciousness so that we can see the same spirit operating within me, we can see that through other people as well. And then grow this consciousness to the entire universe, to the entire human race. Is very peaceful to think about.
Yeah. And if you look at, there's a book, I think it's called The Maharishi Effect, or it's called The 100th Monkey, but it's talking about something called the Maharishi Effect, where with 1% of the population has an awareness around something, that awareness jumps to the entire species. And they've done this with like monkeys and mice and different experiments and things where they can show that just the awareness around this one thing, once a certain percentage gets it, it just jumps. So like mice that were doing a maze in England, that maybe took a couple days to figure out this water maze. And then the same species of rat from the same pool of genetics or whatnot, the very first time in another country that had never run the maze before, get through it in the first try without having to learn it like the other one. And so they were doing experiments like that, just showing the ability that once you get a certain percentage that it jumps to the species. So that's all we need, little 1%. How many people would that be to make that shift and really start to have a different experience and possibility on the planet?
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. Well, great contributions both. Thank you. It's really good.
And
Really
now,
powerful.
well, and it's fun having conversations like this, but some of the comments, and one of them is too big for me to put on screen. But like I said, and I kind of alluded to this, we're not all in the same boat. Like we're having
No,
a
not
really
at
Yeah.
all.
like if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, great example. Physical needs to be met, safety needs need to be met. Like then you have your emotional
Yeah,
needs, self-actualizations at the top. And what about the people to some of these comments that aren't being able to pay their rent, and they're about to get their water turned off, and all these things. These are all possibilities to ask a question. What else is possible here? What
yeah,
contribution could I be to these things? Because these are real problems that are going to happen.
yeah. And it's one of those. There's not an easy answer to give, and I know it's an awareness as I've had is like, yeah, these are, thank you, Imogen, Imagine for bringing these questions up. They're not ones that have simple answers. There are people that are really having a tough time with all the layoffs and the furloughs. And with money not getting to people quickly or enough money in terms of stimulus and unemployment, it's like, yeah, what else is possible here? It's a good question to see where things can go, because in a lot of cases it's not obvious. um, in in a lot of ways we're I won't say we're what happens is that you kind of get into that situation of, do you become fearful? I don't know where my next, you know, meal's coming from. I don't know where, you know, I don't know what's going to happen now that my water's going to turn off, right? And you becomes a very fearful cycle. So what if instead of going into the fear of it, there was a willingness to ask and engage with what else is possible here? And I'm not saying that it's going to be easy or that, things will just not be tough to work through that. But I think there's a possibility that will be available by asking questions rather than turning to the fear and the finite possibilities of, oh no, what am I going to do? Instead, ask what else is possible, or what could I do differently? What is available, or what could I choose here? Um, just to get the energy flowing towards a greater possibility for yourself. And again, that's not saying that it's an easy time, or there's not going to be challenges ahead. It is my awareness and truth that I have to offer is that the questions will open doors up, um, to getting through some of these times more easily than going into the fear and the doubt and the the drama of it. And it's not an easy situation. So always, one of those things. It's not like I can offer a simple, easy answer. I will just advocate that the questions do help in this kind of thing.
No, absolutely. And asking the question what else is possible, just speaking from my own experience, I went from having my part-time gig at Equity Trust Company, for example, where I worked a little bit in the finance world. With the kids being homeschooled now, I had to let that completely go for the most part, just working 1 day a week, going from like a full part-time job to a partial. And then the center had to close down completely. And so what was my choice was, what can I create here with all this time and all this? And I ended up hosting virtual classes for people that I know from Buffalo, hosting them virtually online to create a possibility. And starting Stir Crazy Shamans, the YouTube channel with Casey, was another thing, and doing power possibilities online, like being some change for this type of situation. And I'm speaking, I've been impacted like that too. In fact, I just got, because I forgot about it, the electric bill. I just got a thing saying we can't shut you off because the whole COVID thing. But I'm like, oh, I just forgot to pay it a couple months in a row. But but so I can, I got a shut off notice myself, so I can understand where. I don't like the word of understand. Anyway, the energy around that, I have a one-on-one experience with too. But you can still ask the question, what else is possible? And if you're open to following the energy, what possibility will the universe show you? And it might not show up the way that you think it will. It could be completely different. Like I never thought I would be a web person, like having a show and stuff like that. But even that has opened up possibilities. I've been asked for 4 different podcasts to be on their shows. One of them that broadcasts internationally around the world. And so just from that, what started as a joke, hey, why don't we do the stir crazy shaman thing and just talk about whatever, has created a huge possibility for getting information out that can change people's lives. And if you can be the change in the world, yes, it might be, tough right now, but when that comes back and reciprocates through, it's like, boom, it's, you're putting things in motion that are going to bring fruits later on.
Wow. A few days ago, I was thinking about what do I need to do, because I need to take some summer classes and I didn't have, enough money. And so I was a little bit worried about it, but I said, the universe is full of possibilities, and that infinite force in nature, it's not limited to how much it can provide. And so I was looking through, emails randomly sent from school and stuff, and I saw a scholarship. I said, well, I might as well just, go ahead and apply for it. And and what happens today? I went to the mail, and this is what I got.
How's it getting any better?
So
what else is possible?
Why am I getting this check?
No, don't ask why. How does it get any better?
Yeah, how does it get any better than this?
Check will be for $4,500. I mean, don't stop it. How's it get any better?
I check, and I had to call the school, and I'm like, okay, I got a check. I don't know, so what's going on?
That's amazing. That's an amazing magic. How cool is that?
Right. And it's probably worthwhile
that's awesome.
talking about the difference between actualization and manifestation, because when you start talking about change in the universe and you condition the universe so you're only willing to receive change that looks a certain way, though it can bring it that way, it handcuffs the universe, and it might take a lot longer to put things in motion to bring it to you the way that you're conditioning that it needs to happen, versus saying, I'll take abundance any way it can come, and it comes to you in the form of a check or something like that. Yeah. But the solution for all these things that we're talking about is all individual. Everybody who's in a situation that feels heavy, it's really like, what can you do different to change that? Like Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, he was a psychic reader, a medium, and he knew he was getting information that could change people's lives, and people weren't interested in hearing it. They just wanted to find out what color they should paint their house. And he wasn't happy with the way his life was showing up. And the question that he asked, it changed everything. And Access is like a multi-million-dollar thing now, was, what would I like my life to look like? And he asked that question to the universe, and he followed the energy. When things showed up in his life that matched the frequency of asking that question, he did it. And he just went from one point to the other. And if you can just open up to what would create the greatest possibility in my life today and follow the energy for that, what would your life look like, or what would that day look like? And you continue to ask that question each and every single day. It's up to each one of ours. Like, coming from addiction and everything, I was ego run riot, like totally disconnected. And it took a long time to get the momentum for me to shift. But once things started to shift, it was leaps and bounds, and my whole universe changed. And that could be everybody's experience if we're willing to be that question and willing to allow the change from the universe.
And that's that willingness I think we talked about earlier. Like, you have to be willing to actually have the change and to choose it. Just hoping for it or passively not engaging with the thing doesn't produce the result. It's like wishful thinking. It's like, it'd be great if I won the lottery, but I think, Hank, you like to give the okay, well, have you bought any lottery tickets?
Oh yeah,
well no.
As a reader, yeah, that's one of the first.
Well, good luck winning the lottery.
Or I also tell the story about, I think I've told it on here before. Have I told the story about the flood with the guy, and he's like, God's going to save me?
Well, we've talked about it on maybe conversations with God, but
Okay. So the idea is like this big flood is coming, and this guy, he's just like his faith
no,
in.
it's after like Hurricane Katrina, I think, and the guy's house got like.
Well, no, this was a fictional story that I
Oh,
heard
this is
way
fictional.
before. Yeah, it was fictional.
Oh, okay.
I heard
Oh,
that
dang
in my
it.
like Lutheran church growing up was
Yeah.
way before Hurricane Katrina. But in the story, the waters are coming, and the guy's on his front porch, and he's like, well, first he has time to leave. He could just get in his car and go. He's like, nope, God's going to save me. And then the water starts coming up, and these people come along on the boat. They're like, sir, get in. He's like, nope, God's going to save me. Now he's on
this
the
one.
second floor.
This one's funny.
He's on the second floor now, right? And he's hanging out his window, and these guys come along in a speedboat. They're like, sir, come on, we'll bring you to safety. And he's like, nope, God's going to save me. Now he's on his roof, and a helicopter comes. They lower the ladder down. He's like, nope, not taking the ladder. God's going to save me. And the guy drowns. And now he goes up and he goes to God. He's like, God, what's up? Like, I knew you would save me, but you didn't. What happened? He's like, I sent you two boats and a helicopter. What else could I do? You weren't in the state of allowance to receive what I sent you. And so like what gifts are the universe already bestowing upon us that we might not even be willing to acknowledge or receive because of our point of view of how it should show up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and Mike wants to offer the access tool when things are looking like that too. If things are hard, or what's right about this I'm not getting as an access tool to start to shift the energy around something that's heavy. What's right about this that I'm not getting? And something else I wanted to bring up, sometimes when we have these heavy experiences, like I was deep in addiction, or people that are right now not having money or food because of COVID and things like that, there's this thing in Neil Donald Walsh's book called like the law of opposites. So to experience abundance, you have to have the contextual field of the opposite of that in order to know experientially the abundance. So what if having this experience of not having money and having to scrounge for food and the threat of the water bowl being shut off creates the contextual field for a year from now, 5 years from now, having the experience of this crazy amount of abundance, because now you can really know what that difference is in the world of duality. So just food for thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I see some of the things in the chat going through, and yeah, asking questions is one of the biggest thing. The open-ended ones. What else is possible? How does it get any better than this?
Yep. Mike was ahead of you there.
Yeah, because that's where the universe can show you how it can get better than whatever's going on. And I think with Emmanuel, we use it, both when things go well to acknowledge that something greater could happen, and then we also use it when things are maybe not going as well to ask and demand to the universe, show me how this gets better. And be willing to go wherever that energy is. And one of the oddities with it, I found now, the awareness I got on just now, or as we were talking, was that it is one of those interesting things that when we ask for something or how does it get any better, it's going to show up in like a non-linear way, or a way we don't expect. Because in our brain, if logically the steps we would take to like get out of a situation, if those would work, we probably would have chosen it. So it's usually when we have to ask and then be willing to receive however it shows up, which could be maybe you got to check from the school, right? I mean, you probably that probably wasn't even on your radar as a possibility until you ask like what's possible, and then this check shows up, and there's all kinds of places where the universe gifts, when we're open to receive and ask the question to say, how does it get better than this? What else is possible? And the universe like, here, there's all kinds of stuff available. And we just have to be willing to be open to that may not be the route we thought it was going to be, which is one of the. It's a funny principle to. It's not even get comfortable with. It's just to be uncomfortable with the uncomfort of that it's going to show up like unexpected, and it's a little bit of an adventure at times. But starting out, or if you're in a kind of a tough spot, it's kind of like taking a leap of faith a little bit, like that the universe really has your back. And That's one of the things I know in Access they talk about, that the universe does have your back, whether you're willing to acknowledge it or not. It does respond to it when you put something out there. It does everything it can to get you that different outcome or what you ask for. So if what you ask for is like the why question, and then the universe is like, well, you'd like to know why this happened? Here, let me show you it too again. This is the steps that it took, and then bam, it happens again. And the universe is like, well, this is why. And then you're like, but why? And then the universe is like, okay. And then you get into this loop of like of the why question. So that's where we steer towards the open-ended, how does it get any better and what else is possible, because it doesn't kind of fold back and then the universe says, well, let me show you how to do that. It's like, no, let me show you how to get to a greater or different outcome. That's the ask and receive universe that we live in.
Wow, that part of asking the universe is you've both brought it out in a way that I've never understood, and it's almost like something that I kind of know that it exists, but I've never really fully accepted that it's even a thing, because there's a lot of logic that I go like with logic, but it's something that I'm starting to get open to, that you may not necessarily get what you put in, right? Like it's not necessarily the same measure. What you put in is what you should get out. You can get more than what you put in sometimes. Being open to that, and I think it's a skill that I have to learn going forward, about asking the universe and asking the right question for that matter.
Right. And just to share with you, I have a story from when I was looking at schools too. I couldn't afford college, and I
Mhm.
was planning to go into the military to offset, like at least the reserves to help pay for school and everything. I had even taken the ASVAB, and which is the test that you take to see where you would place and everything, and was working with the recruiter and all that. And I didn't know it at the time, but my parents were totally against me going into the military. And all the messages from the recruiter, they would go to I had a separate answering machine in the house. They would be deleting the messages so I would miss the meetings. And like the day before I was going to sign up, something that I had applied for, a scholarship at Myers University downtown Cleveland, I ended up getting, and I was able to go on almost a full ride. $500 a semester is all I had to pay plus books. And
Wow.
had my parents not deleted all those messages, or if I had signed up, like my whole world would have been different. And so I've received like a great possibility that I wasn't even looking for. That I was looking to go to school, but I had my mindset that it was only could happen one way. But my parents were asking like crazy, what else is possible? Because they were desperately trying to avoid me doing that. And had I gone that way with 9/11, where would I have been in the world, and how would my life look today had I gone the military route? Not that
Mhm.
that would have been wrong. It would have been very different for sure.
I probably we would have had a different Hank Setala.
But I would have gone right in with the hairline for sure.
Yeah, we'd have a full head of hair, Hank, instead of
No,
a bald Hank.
no. I was meaning that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would have been all that's different.
Wow.
And just to give a tool too, like whatever your situation is in the world, one of the questions that Neil Donald Walsh would give in his book Conversations with God, which is amazing, by the way. Sean and I do a book discussion on that once a month as well. But he would say that the whole point of everything is for every day, in every moment, for you to recreate yourself anew, the next grander version that you've ever been. And so, like, if you can stay in that energy to continue to propel yourself to a higher, I don't want to use the word higher, a lighter vibration, because there's no right or, there's not a good or bad type of thing, but what
Yeah.
would create a more lightness in your life? What could you do to do that? Even if it's baby steps. Like when I first got sober, I was in a very different space than I am now. And the
Mhm.
mantra that helped me, and hopefully will help all of you out there if you're watching and you're in one of those situations that feels so heavy, my sponsor had told me self-pity and gratitude cannot coexist. And he had given me that tool specifically because there was somebody very near and dear to me that had the same drinking characteristics as me. So I would never label someone else as an alcoholic or whatnot, but I really wanted to help them and I felt powerless because I couldn't. And he said, well, whenever you feel that self-pity because you can't help them and you're in that victim mentality, remember, self-pity and gratitude cannot coexist, and whatever the situation is, reframe it in some sort of gratitude statement. So for that example, I said, wow, I'm so grateful that if and when this person is willing to receive my help, that I'm in a place of sobriety and can help them. So whatever the situation is, what wording could you use, what question could you ask that could create a possibility around whatever your situation is? Yeah, it is a great book, Mary. I love it. You should join us for Conversations with God. It's going to be
join us.
Yeah, it's normally the fourth Thursday of the month, but I'm bumping it to the following Tuesday because I have a commitment, or maybe the previous Tuesday. Sean and I will talk. Well, but we even put the screen up and we do a screen share. We read passages from the book. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
And we
we're
have
all fancy now. We have a digital copy of the book, and
Oh,
we
yeah.
were highlighting last month. I mean, we
Oh,
were
yeah. It's
we
great.
were really breaking out the tools.
Oh, and the control F feature, so you can just
Oh
jump
yeah, we could find things.
like super fast. It's amazing. So definitely, that's another great thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I would love to join you on that and see how that works
Yeah.
out.
And you can go back on the YouTube channel. It's all archived there. So like past power possibilities. It's way more fun having people on, I gotta say. Like Sean and I, we sometimes if people aren't asking questions and it's like, what are we gonna talk about? That's why I had the fortune cookies ready. We're gonna open fortune cookies and talk about whatever the cookie said. But you can go back through the archives and see past power possibilities and past CWG groups and all that good stuff too. As well as we also do holistic highlights. So we have a couple different programs on our YouTube station for the center, which are all fun. Cool. Where do we go next? We still have about 24 minutes to our stream.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for staying with us so long. I appreciate your contributions. It's been amazing having another perspective on things.
Yeah, thank you.
Fun.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Cool. Let's see where to go. Actually, since I brought up the fortune cookie, let me open one. Like I brought it up. My kids ended up eating like all of them except for two. But like, let's see what's going to happen with the cookie. I'll eat it off air though because I don't want to crunch on people. So how about another fortune? Secondfortune.com. Oh wait, that's the other side. Smile. A smile will make you young forever.
There we go.
There we go.
Well, there's something to be said that where I could go with that easily. There's are you familiar with NLP mapping? Anyone?
Is this your neurological linguistics?
Yeah, neurological linguistic programming. Yes. So the idea of one thing that you can do to duplicate what somebody else is doing, this is especially true for if you're watching someone do mediumship or healing work, you watch their physiology and you duplicate the physiology and you get the same response. So like if you're in a place of heaviness, if you just smile, like the physiological thing is that you might create joy in your life just from the putting the body in a position where you would be experiencing joy. There was this whole thing in the class that I took for NLP. They called it model, clay, and artist, right? So one person had to think about something in their life. It could be happy, could be sad, could be anything. And they had to like make their body like express that, right? Now the artist is looking at that. And now the clay over here who can't see that person has to you as an artist, you're like moving their body, you're moving their facial expression and all that, and then the person that you've done that to, they tell you what the feeling was, and then you compare it to what the person was trying to express in the position that they took, and you'll find that they oftentimes come very close. So if you copy the physiology, I can't say it. If you make your body be in the like smiling and stuff like that, you may just find yourself shifting to that state of joy. So there's something. It was a great fortune. It gave me something to go to. And Felix is asking a question. Is it possible that spirit beings could consume a big full bag of medicine that would full? Oh, maybe that's an aporting question.
What?
Aporting question.
What does that mean?
Like teleportation of stuff, and that happened to me today. Actually, I lost a whole. It's ironic that this person writes this.
Well, I laughed at this because my answer, but the answer I get is, well, yes, of course it's possible.
Yeah. Well,
But
so
what about it?
well, and whether or not they got consumed or something else, when I and our nature excursions today, I had a bag of Peruvian bay leaf, call it right, and I was out and it just disappeared, and I had to go home and get a whole nother thing. Now the irony is, I found an extra bag, right? Um, and I guess that one was for the spirits because they took it on our nature expedition. So like that actually happened to me today, and then this person's asking about it. I wonder if this person is someone that I know and they know the story already. I don't know. Probably not. But
Right.
aporting is just the and I can give you an example of that. I was at Inspiration Stump in Lilydale, which is a spiritualist community in New York, and I just got the hit to take a necklace that I had and put it on the stump. And it was like something I was very fond of, and was a little resistant. And then I heard from Spirit, "Don't worry, you'll get it back." I'm like, okay. So I left this necklace on Inspiration Stump, and like 2 years later, on my personal altar, it just reappears one day. And I'm like, holy cow.
Wow.
So is it possible? Yes, we would call that aporting, or a spirit like moving something from one place to the other, or a
Hmm.
physical manifestation of something that wasn't there before, whether it's teleportation or just demanifestation, remanifestation, who's to say? But yes, it's possible. At least I believe it is. And
Mm.
point of view creates reality. So if your reality or your point of view is that it's not possible, then you might not experience that in your reality. Mm-mm.
The spirit world is such a vast world that we can't even put words around. I feel like our mind, our logical mind, thinking about the spiritual things, sometimes we can't just get words around it, I feel like. And the more we explore in the possibilities that are within that realm, I think the more we learn, it's like it never really ends. But and another thing is that the larger the majority of the people in the universe, the majority of the people in the universe are now open to the possibility of this spiritual essence, these spiritual things that happen. We are so much used to the logic step to step until we fail to recognize that which that we can't explain. So I feel like the more we get people like you, Sean and Hank, and groups of people start talking more about these possibilities, I think we bring more awareness to this, and that is the revolution that needs to happen. That is the freedom of consciousness, the freedom of consciousness that needs to happen and to
Hmm.
expand, to more and more people to recognize this, this part of who we are and the possibility they are in.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Yes,
Is
so
is now the time? Is
it
now the
is the
time?
time. Hmm.
Yep. One of the quotes from Neil Donald Walsh is, "If not you, who? If
Who?
if not now, when?" What choice could you make in the ever-present moment of now to create the greatest possibility for yourself and the planet, whatever that is? And Felix was asking, "Who's my favorite shaman?" Well, me, of course. No, if I had to pick someone, and shaman is a loaded word too. But my teacher, Don Zane Kerfman, I would probably rate quite high up there. He is the author of Inca Mountain Magic. If you want to check out his book on Amazon, it's definitely a good read. And then Mary was just offering, "Have you talked about how to raise vibrational level?" Oh my God, Lily Dell, the Woods took classes there. So there's a lot of different ways, even like watching things like this. If you're open to receiving the medicine that it has, the energetic medicine, that watching things like this can shift vibration. But point of view does create your reality, and you don't have to choose joy, and that's okay for anybody out there. If you choose something else, your point of view will create your reality. And I would just invite everybody to suspend your disbelief and other than what you've been experiencing, because just from the comments, I know that everybody isn't in the same place. We're not in the same boat, and
Mhm.
but we do all have the same access to the universe and to be in the space of allowance to start to shift our possibilities. So I invite everybody to do that, whatever your situation is, to shift if you can. And if you can't, imagine what would it feel like if I could? And that question, then, that's an NLP trick too, and I'm sure other modalities. If you can't wrap your head around something, then you ask, well, what would it feel like if I could? And then seeing if that question can start to create a possibility and to shift things. Cool, cool. And Lilydale, for anybody who's not aware, Spiritualist Community New York, and they offer a lot of the classes this year streaming because, of course, with COVID, they had to come into the 21st century too. And for the first time ever, they're planning to offer most of their curriculum online, I believe. And so now, instead of only catering to the people that go there, they can now cater to the world. And how does it get any better than that?
Mm-hmm.
How does it get any better?
Oh, we gotta throw this one up. Y'all very handsome. Well, thank you very much, Felix.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It's because of my 5 o'clock shadow. I haven't shaved in a few days.
Yeah. I combed my hair before I came on.
Cool.
You
Well,
know, Hank, something that you mentioned about uh, us not, being on the same journey, that is very true. For me, for example, I'm really getting into the journey of understanding. And one question that I've had to ask myself is, what if there is something more than what I actually know? What if there's something more than the world is aware about? What if there's an existence that we haven't really, really explored?
What
Like,
would it be like to connect with that?
right.
Would you be willing to connect with that?
I will be willing to be connected with that.
You will be.
If there is something that has never been explored before, like we've already, I know that the spirit world has never really been explored, and not a lot of people are open to the ideas of something that you cannot see, you cannot touch, and yet its existence is really happening. I know that the world is not open to that idea yet. I mean, more and more people are getting, you know, comfortable talking about it. And so there's a window of more people opening up to it. But what are the possibilities that are contained within that spiritual context? So that is what fascinates me. That's what I want to know. What if there's more than we know logically? So what you were saying about you have to be willing to open to it. What becomes the challenge is that our brain is not accustomed to that. Like our brain can stop us. You want to open up to possibility, to something that you probably maybe don't have an understanding about.
Yeah.
And the brain is bound to stop
Yeah.
you from going there.
Yeah. That's where we pull access. At least that's where I'm going, Hank. Is that where
Yep.
you were going to go?
Other than first giving my acronym for ego, edging God out. As if you let the ego run riot, then it does. The ego functions on past data, and it will let you relive your worst day over and over again because it knows you survived it, and it freaks out when you go to step into possibility. But access is a great tool to minimize that and expand the other side. Where were you going with access? Was there a specific tool you were going to throw out there, Sean?
Oh, I was, as you know, the mind getting in the way. It's where, one, using all the access tools, that helps you get through those places where because you'll kind of go for a little bit, then you'll kind of get stuck, and then you'll kind of go for a bit, and that's where the access tools can facilitate getting through those stuck points faster, or with less, easier than maybe in the past, because they're really good tools. And then the mind getting in the way is something we talk about in access, where that's where you have to be willing to let go of your logical mind to a large degree, and let the universe operate in the illogical, because the universe isn't logical.
Right.
You can't define the universe in this narrow box. So you have to be willing to receive whatever the outcome is when you put demands and stuff out to the universe. And that's certainly I know that for me that was an interesting one to start working with. Like, what do you mean my logical mind doesn't work, or like it doesn't create results? And then I looked at it more and started kind of tinkering with it. You know, I was kind of like, oh, I'll try this a little bit, and then slowly I was like, oh yeah, I really can't think myself out of some of these problems, because if I could think myself out of it, I would have done it. Um, so that's where, for me, it was kind of that realization of like, oh yeah, I can't think myself out, so I just have to take that leap to a degree and ask the universe and see where it goes. So it's definitely an interesting one. So I hear you. I hear where you're at with that.
Yeah. I think it's in the Bars book too. They say if you're thinking, you're stinking. Like the brain just screws everything up in a way once you
Yeah.
start to apply logic to it. Because most of the things that the brain knows too are all installed filters and implants from our parents or from our society, and then you have to get it through all the filter layers before you can. Anyway, it's a lot of work instead of just connecting to possibility and letting the brain just freak out. Oh,
Mhm.
Michael's feeling lots of awareness and expansion. Very cool. You, and I would also.
Right.
Oh yeah, it is from AA too. That's a stinking thinking thing. Is from AA. And whatever your choices are, two other tools that I kind of want to throw out there. One is to test every choice that you're making with something called the Four Absolutes. It's something originally from the Oxford group, and then it was kind of taken by AA, and we ran with it. But is it loving? Is it honest? Is it selfless? Is it pure? And if it doesn't follow any of those, if it doesn't check against those four things, then it might be a choice from ego instead of from the space of oneness. And it's a great test, especially at meditation. Did I get guidance from source, or is my ego throwing something in that I should be mindful of? And the other thing, choose what feels light in your life. Like, I know we might be getting a lot of judgments about our podcast tonight. And if what we're saying doesn't feel light for you, maybe something else does. And that's cool. Like, you pick things that feel light in your life to add more lightness. And if there's something that's causing a heaviness, then maybe that's not for you. And that's cool too. Everybody's in a different spot. And just to take what you can and to shift to lightness if you can be open to the possibility of it. And that is all for me, or at least for that the two things I want to throw out there. And Michael is saying it will help everything. Yeah, AA, Mike, or what will help everything?
It will help everything. Well, that's one take.
Well, there's something to be said that for that. The guy, Dr. Bob, he was childhood friends with a guy named Raymond Cassidy, and Raymond Cassidy is the founder of Rishi's Metaphysical Institute and studied at the mystery schools. And a lot of the things that are built into the 12-step program are very metaphysical in nature. They just didn't call it that, because people would have been like, what's that? So that it's kind of like metaphysics in disguise. But those 12 steps, if it's kind of like a process of clearing your puja, it's clearing your heaviness and clearing all the stuff that would prevent you from tapping into oneness and allow you then to walk hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. So whether you're watching this, if you're out there, and whether you're an addict or an alcoholic or not, picking up and working those little 12 steps that they came up with might just create a possibility in your life. Oh, it's in Euclid, Ohio. Thank you, Michael. Yep, it is in Euclid, Ohio. Rishi's Metaphysical Institute. Amazing, amazing place to study metaphysics. It will take you 30 years to get through it all, but it is an amazing place to study. I only made it through 2 years before I moved too far away to go. Hopefully they'll get virtual too. How awesome would that be?
Mm-hmm.
So we're coming up on our 90-minute mark. Any final kind of thoughts to put out there? And Emmanuel, it was amazing connecting with you today. I hope we can make this a regular thing and have you at some more of the events and maybe hang out. But of course, keep 6 feet away.
Yeah.
But have you at some of the events and see what other fun things we can get into.
Yeah, definitely. It's been pleasure having me and to be able to share with people who I feel like we connect and we share similar ideas. Because sometimes I feel alone when I'm talking to my friends about spiritual essence and all this thing, consciousness. They're like, what? What you talking about?
What are you
So
talking about? You're crazy.
yeah, so it's really truly helpful to be able to share with at least people who have that same understanding. So I appreciate you.
Well, not only that, but by doing things like this on the stream, you take
Yeah.
advantage of what's something that Neil calls the multiplier effect. Have you ever heard of that, Sean?
No, it sounds
No,
amazing.
so yeah, so it's
Hmm.
from his book Happier Than God, and he talks about the mechanism of manifestation. So, like, if you were helping
Hmm.
somebody one on one, you're helping
Hmm.
one other aspect of divinity, and helping them is essentially helping yourself because we're all one. So the energy that you're putting out is coming back. So now
Hmm.
by being on the stream and say 80 people watch it or 1,000 people watch it, whatever it is, what we're doing is creating reverberations and coming back because we're now impacting the lives of 100 people or however many people. And because we're all one, you're impacting that many other aspects of you. And that's what the multiplier effect is, where you create all this amazing possibility by shifting other people's awarenesses. It's all in, coming back to you in a way because you are them and they are you. We're all one and we're all separate. Both are true. But
We
that's
are
fire
definitely.
effect. Yeah. And for anybody who wants to dive deeper into that, Happier Than God, amazing book by Neil Donald Walsh. It's 5 things for the mechanism of manifestation, and they're really good. So,
Hmm.
well, that could be a whole separate, and will be a whole separate video. Maybe we will start with that for our CWG discussion group on for this month. We can start with that mechanism of manifestation. So we gave you guys a hook, so you have a reason to come back and watch the next thing that we're going to do.
Hmm.
How about you,
Yeah.
Sean? Any final thoughts?
No, just wanted to acknowledge Emmanuel. Thanks for joining us. And you know, just kudos for being willing to jump in. And you said your friends are kind of like, "What's this consciousness thing?" And just that you have that inner fortitude to go and seek out greater, even when your friends aren't or maybe aren't quite on board with it, at the present
Yeah.
moment. So there's some, I think, good acknowledgement there that you had the the guts and the strength to keep at it. That's a good chunk of the initiative is to stick with it. We talk about being strong in access. Always be strong.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I got I
Thank you.
ordered the second fortune
yeah.
cookie for my final thought. I got it says no
Oh,
one,
all right. Second
yeah,
cookie.
second cookie for our final
Cookie
thought.
number 2.
No one can make you feel inferior without your consent.
Wow.
Man, these are just mind blowers.
Yeah. And to expand on that, one of the ideas in the Peruvian shamanism is this idea that nothing can come into or out of your energy field without your consent on some level. And that doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily mean conscious consent. So, just like
Right.
if your house gets robbed, but you had left the window open, you provided the possibility for that to come in and have an impact on your experience. So, that's an example of like unconscious consent. So, like, what windows do we have open of things that we're not willing to look at that are causing that? And I give the
Hmm.
example when you were, in third grade, if you got bullied on the bus and you never dealt with that and you never stood up for yourself, you may have this original wound that's allowing other people to bully you. And it's not that you're consciously allowing it, but you have this energetic vibration that is allowing it to come in because of an unresolved wound that needs healing. So, what unresolved wounds do we have that, if we were to heal, would shift our entire reality with total ease? I'll end with that.
Whoa.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you've been watching, like, that, there's a great note to end on. And Mike gave us the unicorns here.
And we got a little star thingy.
Star thingy. Oh yeah, that the very end. Yeah,
Looks
that's
like 2 stars that are doing one of these.
And
yeah.
orbit. Yeah.
Yeah, orbiting each other. That.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that word when we have a lot of space and there's gravity and the object goes around the other object?
I don't know what the word is for that.
It was
that
orbit.
Yeah.
Oh, orbit. Okay, there we go. That was a trick question. Well, everyone, thank you so much for being with us, and we will catch you next month on the second Tuesday, we'll do Power Possibilities
Tuesday.
again, streaming from the center, but you can still join us live on the stream. Sean and I will be mic'd up, and then we're going to have like a TV screen where we can show people that are participating virtually. So we will be able to have, if you're going to zoom in, or not zoom in, we'll be using this. But anyway, it's going to work out, and we'll have our first hybrid, like a real hybrid Power Possibility.
Ooh,
It's going to be
hybrid, the hybrid form.
all right.
That's amazing.
All right, guys. But thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.